Hello and welcome to Unbossed, Unbothered, and Unfiltered. I'm your host, Lauren Zayu. Join me as we navigate the political communications, ups and downs, and ins and outs of our day. We're talking to leading experts on the issues that help our country move forward for the better. My guests and I promise to give you the history, the real, and the ideal. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to Unbossed, Unbothered, and Unfiltered. I'm your host, Lauren Zayu. The year 2020 was a year where we asked for a lot of reforms at local and county levels. And the narrative was that those reforms were being asked for, even demanded by young Black people. We saw activists of all stripes pressuring politicians at all levels for change. And while that was very impactful, some advocates took it a step further and ran to replace many of the current office holders. Our next two episodes feature young people who ran for office to create change in their communities. And we are kicking off today with Nathan G. Alexander III, who is an advocate and voting enthusiast. At the time of his election, he was the youngest elected official in the state of Texas, being elected to the Prairie View City Council at the age of 22. Councilman Alexander was elected in a special election in November of 2020, finishing the term of his predecessor. In May of 2021, Councilman Alexander was reelected to serve his first full term on City Council. By way of Wichita Falls, Texas, Alexander has earned a bachelor's in political science and government from Prairie View A&M University, where he furthered his demonstration for leadership, serving in multiple student leadership positions through his undergraduate tenure. In 2019, Nathan interned for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, serving the office of Congressman Emanuel Cleaver. Prior to that, he served as the external affairs intern for Campfire, North Texas, reporting to the executive director and CEO. As a person who believes in kids finding their spark, Councilman Alexander has spent his life advocating for youth and has become a strong voice for those who feel theirs is going unheard. While on the City Council, one of the councilman's top initiatives is to help form special services that help our youth prepare to become leaders of tomorrow. Councilman Alexander aspires to enter law school and has a deep passion for government relations, public policy, and local and state government. I'm excited to welcome to Unbossed, Unbothered, and Unfiltered, Councilman Nathan Alexander. Hi, Councilman.
How you doing, Lauren?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. If you just want to kind of get started with our school and life segment, so that's your bio, kind of tell us more about you.
For sure. So my name is Nathan Alexander III. I am from Wichita Falls, Texas. I graduated from Prairie View A&M University, and now I am the city councilman for position number 3 in the city of Prairie View, Texas. As of 3 months ago, prior to 3 months ago, I was the youngest elected official in the state of Texas, being elected at 22. But I have a brother in Grand Prairie, Texas, who was elected, and he is 21 years old. So he got elected in May, so he is now the youngest. But we both, making sure that we're fighting truth to justice, and overall carrying on the fight, speaking truth to power, being an advocate for people. That's kind of really all I've been since I grew up. Growing up, I have been heavily involved in leadership programs that really just motivated my activism. When it would have been Straight Street, Campfire, I was always seen as a leader amongst this group, and I really kind of just spearheaded my way when I got to my university standpoint and kind of what I wanted to do. It was because of President Obama. I'm not even going to. I got to make sure I acknowledge him, that I even began to, press forward in this path to even want to pursue activism and pursue even public service. So it is because of things that I've seen in my life that I just want to, that I had to be a person that, put my voice and put my effort in ensuring that our world is a little bit better for our children, for our grandchildren, than when we got here.
Absolutely. And so was public service something you always saw as an option for your leadership?
Yeah, for sure. I actually can't, honestly don't even know of a time that I haven't thought about public service being an option for my leadership. Like I said, since the age of I don't even remember how old I was, but since I was in 5th grade, I seen Obama that making his acceptance speech and accepting the presidency in Chicago that day. I knew then that if I seen an African American, a black man become president, that who knows that one day that I possibly could too. That really at a young age really kind of motivated me. And and ever since then I've been tracking for that journey of in public service of as I've got more educated. I don't know about president no more. That's a really tough job, and I commend anyone who wants to go for it, but definitely in the track of public service and being sure that I'm able to speak and advocate on behalf of the people.
Absolutely. For the record, I agree with you on president. I think it's a tough job and it's kind of a thankless job. So I can see how that would not necessarily be at the top of the list anymore. But speaking of, public service and the way that we enter these moments, I know that you ran last year, and 2020 was such a hard year for Black people, particularly young Black people. And so what was it like running for office in that type of climate?
Yeah, for sure. It was a very interesting time. I ran during the time where we saw not one, not two, but three African Americans killed. 2 of them by police officers. It was a very interesting time. We actually during my campaign took a part of a march that went from Sandra Bland Boulevard. As maybe your viewers don't know, but if your viewers don't know, Sandra Bland, the last place she was seen alive was on University Drive, now Sandra Bland Boulevard in Prairie View, Texas. So we marched from Sandra Bland Boulevard from that last known spot to the Waller County Sheriff's Office where she was found dead. That is about a 7-mile journey. And my campaign did take a part of that. That was a experience like no other, and I will forever hold that memory. But to me, it just really allowed us to truly really allowed me to reflect the bigger purpose on why I was running. Of course, I started my campaign before any of the deaths happened, but there's been a long history of this in our country. So these 3 incidents are not they're not single incidents, they're not sole incidents, and it's something that we needed to talk about. And I feel like last summer was just the pressure point and a breaking point of everything. It was just like a volcano waiting to erupt. And my campaign was really right in the middle of it. However, during my campaign, I was able to really promise and really advocate on things that kind of pushed our city council in the right direction. During that campaign, my city council that I currently sit on prior to had already began working on police reform and how they can transform our budget, transform the budget in ways that promotes community activism and community organizing and things of that nature. And also, even this cycle, we focus heavily on promoting community engagement and that police officer budget. It's super important that our police officers are engaged with our community and they actually know who our police officers actually know who they're protecting. And with Prairie View being such a small knit community, that is one of the focal points that is at the top of council agenda, the mayor's agenda, and myself's agenda. With it as well being at home of Prairie View A&M University, one of the leading HBCUs in the state of Texas and the highest with the highest attendance. It's also the biggest voting block in Waller County with 10,000 people. So it's always the target to us. We call it a soft spot in the city. We want to make sure that it's always protected because it is pretty vulnerable.
Gotcha. I mean, so as an HBCU grad, and a fan of Prairie View overall, I want to give a moment kind of for Prairie View A&M in this. So kind of to contextualize the town of Prairie View, like give us the idea of like how much of the town is the college? Like what's that relationship like?
Yeah, for sure. So so you have the city, of course. You have the university. The university is now, I believe, I don't even want to misage the university, but the university was built before the city was established. So the city was established around the university. And the city has only been around for 50 so years. So it's a developing and incorporated city. I would say, like I said in my previous answer, that our community is about, on a give or take day, on a give or take year, 800 to 1,000 people. And then the university takes up, and then the university carries about 8,000 to 10,000 of the more of those people. we are making us the highest, like I said, the highest population in Waller County, and that's solely because of the university. So we cater to them a lot, because obviously that is the biggest population, and we serve all of our students, of course, but we want to make sure that the students who are coming from all across the world to our city are taken care of as well.
Absolutely. And as we transition into Hold Up, something that I'm thinking about in this moment is like, so as city council and as a fairly young city council, right? What are some of the things that fall under your jurisdiction that are like separate from the university, but also like, how does that play out?
Yep, for sure. So everything is separate. The city, of course, the city and the university completely work together all the time, but they're two complete separate entities. The president Ruth Cinnamons, I talk to her on a daily basis. They have two separate police departments. So that's another thing that students have to deal with, and as a student as well, I deal with it. But not only do they have to worry about the university police, they have to worry about the city police, then the county police, and then the constable. So there's 5 policing agencies over the university in itself.
Wow.
Another thing is different. When it comes to like general waste and compost and things of that nature, that's two complete separate different system. When it comes to like our water recycling and water management, two complete different systems. So yeah, they're two complete separate entities. The city operates in a municipality setting, and the university operates under the state. And as a public university, and we just support the university with our police department at events and things of that nature. We have a really close-knit relationship. When it comes to voting, we also want to make sure that Prairie View and M&M is always at the table when it comes to voting, and we have that conversation with the county. I'm not for sure if I said that previously, but Prairie View A&M University is constantly being tagged for voting because they're the highest voting block in Waller County, and and also, so if there ever was a time to flip Waller County, it will come from the students of Prairie View A&M University. So they're constantly being attacked. It is actually because of Prairie View students and the Sims versus the United States case dating back into the 70s that allowed college students the right to vote all across the nation where they attend school at. And that's because the students at Prairie View A&M University. So Prairie View has a long, rich history of protecting that right to vote. And so anything that we do in the city, we want to make sure that Prairie View A&M is at the table when it comes to voting rights.
Absolutely. And I know earlier you mentioned the police reform that was kind of already underway before it became such a hot issue in 2020. So what were some of the reforms you were looking at?
Yeah, so some of the reforms we were looking at were banning chokeholds in the city of Prairie View. Okay. We were also looking at different ways to respond to different incidents, not necessarily having a police officer respond to different incidents all the time, but having someone for welfare services respond, or even unarming officers when they respond to different situations. We do know that not every situation needs an armed officer. Another thing that we look to change within our community was ensuring that our officers actually knew our police officers and they knew who them were engaged. I feel like that's the biggest factor in really all communities is the communities don't know who the police officers are, and I feel like the distrust between the city and the police and the community, there's a huge bridge that they have to come together. But those really were the top things that was introduced in that bill right before I came onto city council, and also putting more money into community engagement within the police officer budget, because and that's simply not really putting more money, but allocating other money from other ways, like weapons and things of that nature, and putting it more so to a community engagement standpoint. That's what we did. So it's not really defunding the police, but really so much of reallocating resources of police and really changing the priorities of how police departments operate within the cities.
I think the last piece of what you mentioned was really important as far as allocating money in different spaces. I know the defund the police was such a hot topic last year, especially at the national level, it felt like. And that was weird because police budgets aren't allocated nationally, they're allocated in local government. And so I am curious as to, one, what prompted the reallocation of those funds and what was the community's response to asking the funds to be reallocated?
Yeah, for sure. What prompted the reallocation of those funds was, of course, the national conversation around the just around exactly what do our police officers do? What exactly are taxpayer dollars paying for? I feel like that's a conversation that every citizen, regardless of every department, regardless, should be asking that question: what exactly am I paying for?
Right.
And then I believe so. Our city council began looking into that exact issue. What are our citizens paying for? And I did believe we felt the need to allocate from different resources. Like we didn't feel like X amount of money should be used to have, they should have this much money in military. They shouldn't have this much money in command center. You got to think about how many of these incidents we actually have in our city, and do we really need this big of a budget for that? We don't have these mass shootings, so do we need to have this mass budget to say in the events of or can we look at these or can we look at ways to allocate that money to look at more preventative options to prevent things like that to happen? So that's really, we really wanted to change our priority and focus on exactly how our police department operated it. We wanted to start being more proactive to situations and reactive to situations. I really felt like the citizens, on the other hand, really felt that for the chance that we were listening to them. They felt their change. Even the students felt like that as well. That we were listening to them. And we actually had it's even had to the change that we had the conversation with the university police department and how we can find ways to work with them, because like I said, they're dealing with, we having two different agencies here, so we have to work with other entities when it comes to policing people in the city of Prairie View. But we're having conversations around the community on how we can reallocate or respend or look for different ways to police our areas, especially when it concerns our citizens in the city of Prairie View, because we know at the end of the day, we are the minority community in Waller County, and we want to make sure that everyone is protected. And that's really the number one priority that I went in as going in as city council, especially since the events that happened last year. I hold it really dear in my heart. That every citizen in our community is protected, and really everyone in our county, even those who aren't. I really feel like there should be never an incident in our community that leads anyone to unjustly dying, especially if it's at the hands of police officers. So, like I said, we want to be proactive and look for ways to avoid situations like that from happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you say spending, I guess reallocating towards community engagement, what does community engagement look like in this time?
Yeah, so community engagement looks like at this time simply having meet and greets with police officers, having different having different events in the community, and the police department throwing different events in the community and ensuring that every citizens and inviting citizens to come out and partake in those events. I feel like that relationship and that bond, building that trust amongst them, I feel like that's the first step in really mending that bridge, letting them know that we are here, to protect you. We are here not only, if a bad situations happen, but if you just need someone to, drive by when you're on vacation. Like I said, we are a very small community, so there's no reason why any of our officers, if they're on vacation, can't drive by your house. So we just wanted to be able to create that bond, create that type of relationship within our city with our officers, so that we can be able to know face from face, name from name, the people that our citizens will be patrolling in the streets.
That's good to know. As we transition into I Ain't Sorry, what is a personal philosophy or a lesson that you've learned in the work you do that you feel like helps you further like ground yourself?
For sure. I feel like one of the lessons that I'm learning, and I'm continuing to have to learn as I'm going through this path of mine, is that I cannot please everyone. However, I'm going to please as many people as I can. I'm going to continue to work for as many people as I can. And I'm going to continue to work to change the minds of the people that I can't. And I feel like that's super. That's something, especially at the beginning, I was really kind of downing myself down about. And then I just really had to be, as I began working and I really began, really showing the people hopefully those minds began to change, and I have begun seeing that. So as I continue to climb this ladder in public service, whether I be a councilman or a state representative or anything in that nature, I'm going to keep that in mind, that I'm not going to be able to please everybody, but I am going to work to change the minds of the people that I don't.
Yeah, I think that's really important to remember, especially in service work overall. There's so much pressure. And then you also have the double, I guess, tension of what you feel about these issues too. Like, you're a human, and so you've got your own emotions. And so, yes, you represent the people, but you also like understand right from wrong yourself. And so pulling all of that as a public official, I think, is really important. Yeah, and so keeping that in mind, I think that as a generation and as a culture, I think there's a jaded perspective on politics. I think a lot of people think that it doesn't help people, it doesn't change people. It's not somewhere to make the world a better place. And so acknowledging that you are, well, formerly the youngest, but the second youngest official in Texas right now, what gives you hope?
What gives me hope? What gives me hope is the fact that I know that there is a generation after me that is thriving, that there is people after me, just like who I was, that will one day look up and see myself on a TV screen and say, wow, if he can do it, so then I. The same way that Barack Obama inspired me, I want to be that inspiration to somebody else. So that's why I continue tracking the way that I'm going, because I know that if I continue pressing forward, I will be that inspiration to somebody. And that's just how we continue this chain of ensuring that everyone's voice and everyone is represented and everyone's at the table.
Absolutely. Are there any final thoughts you have? Any wrap-up comments?
Yeah, for sure. I'm super grateful for you allowing me to be able to share my story and a little bit what I do. It is literally because of the people that I'm doing what I'm doing. It's because they give me a fire and aspiration to be able to speak on their issues and really able to advocate. People say all the time that I don't see how you can get into politics and things like that. Politics is not personal, but politics is not personal, but you have to get personal with politics because it affects everybody. Whether you think about it or not, it affects everyone's daily lives, whether it's from a federal level, state level, and right where I am on a local level. And I'm finding that every day as a city councilman, a member, that I have over 3,000 residents that I'm accountable for, and ensuring that their well-being and welfare is at the utmost standards. So it's at times it may feel like a heavy burden, and it may feels like it's a lot of bickering and arguing, but at the end of the day, it's for the people that we do this, and that's really what we have to remember. And I encourage all leaders on all levels to remember the people that sent you there and the real reason that you're doing your job.
That is great. Thank you for being here. I've enjoyed this conversation immensely. If you give me one moment, I'll go ahead and wrap up. That was this episode of Unbossed, Unbothered, and Unfiltered. If you're looking for me, you can find me at Lauren Zayu on Instagram and Twitter. And if you're looking for the show, you can find us at Unbossed, Unbothered, and Unfiltered on Facebook and Instagram. I hope to see you there.